COVID-19 has put a significant stress test on Southeast Asia as nations manage the pandemic and their ties with bigger powers. It comes against the backdrop of increasing US-China tensions, with both sides exchanging barbs over the origins of the coronavirus. Those are some of the insights from the newly released Asia-Pacific Regional Security Assessment.
And for a closer look, we're joined by Ridzwan Rahmat, Principal Defence Analyst at defence consultancy firm Janes. Thanks for joining us. Firstly, set the context for us, if you will. How is COVID-19 affecting the region's security landscape?
Well, yes, as we may be aware, defence budgets are always usually a percentage of the GDP. So if the GDP falls, usually the defense budgets of the various countries will fall as well. So that's what we are observing over the past year. I mean, even the industrialized countries like South Korea, South Korea just announced a $750 million cut to their defense budget, which is concerning given the kind of threats that they are facing. Across Southeast Asia, we are seeing Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, they have all announced defense budget cuts also, which also usually means a lot more, or rather a lot less spending on defense platforms. However, there are exceptions to the rules. And one of them is Singapore, which has actually increased its defense budget in terms of real dollars. So I think the pandemic has accentuated the difference between the haves and the have-nots when it comes to defense spending. And I think over the next few years, this will translate into a bigger gap, or rather a polarization in defense capabilities in this region.
Ridzwan, what specific vulnerabilities has the pandemic exposed in terms of security?
Well, it varies across the region, but what stood out for me were the incidences that happened over the past few weeks and how vulnerable we are as a region in terms of how much we have polarized in our defense capabilities. Yeah, I think if you were to look at the South China Sea incursions that were reported by Malaysia last week, I think they were not prepared to deal with it, although they were able to detect the Chinese warplanes. So I think these are some of the vulnerabilities that will come on board. A lot of Southeast Asian countries will realize that their defense equipment are aging. They are not supposed to be, the defense equipment are not able to do what they were designed to do. And I think the defense budget cuts that I mentioned just now will just accentuate a lot of these problems that are being discovered as China increases its deployments in the South China Sea.
And with COVID-19 as the backdrop, how will Southeast Asia, including Singapore, be affected by intensifying tensions between the big countries, US and China?
Yeah, I think we have seen a lot of hot words being exchanged between Beijing and Washington. I think on its part, Washington has accused China of using the pandemic as an excuse to increase its deployments to the South China Sea. And so far, data that we've been monitoring suggests that this is so. Yeah, so I think there's going to be a lot more deployments of military assets by China while there's a so-called lull period by the Southeast Asian countries. And I think the Southeast Asian countries are going to find that their military equipment are going to be tested. You see, when China deploys military equipment to the South China Sea, it will have to be met with a reciprocal deployment, usually by a vessel or an aircraft to monitor this. And this kind of deployments will put a lot of stress on the already aging inventory of a lot of Southeast Asian armed forces in this region. So I think a lot of these capabilities will be put to the test. And I think a lot more focus will be coming on board aging equipment such as the aging submarine that was unfortunately involved in the accident in Indonesia some weeks back.
Ridzwan, we've already seen that defence officials have been less likely to meet up during this pandemic situation. How does all of this impact defence diplomacy?
Yes, I'm quite disappointed with the Shangri-La Dialogue's cancellation. I was looking forward to the new US Defense Secretary coming on board to give his speech. As we know, it will be his first time in Southeast Asia, and I was expecting some solid relationships that were going to be built at that particular dialogue. A lot of these dialogues, the plenaries, they play a certain function, but the informal meetings that happen on the sidelines, they play a very important function too when it comes to policy making. So I do wonder how much opportunity has been missed whenever we have a cancelled event such as the Shangri-La Dialogue, and how much friendships that could have been forged, being put to miss by the lack of face-to-face meetings between these high-level officials.
Ridzwan, thank you very much for your thoughts. Ridzwan Rahmat there, Principal Defence Analyst at defence consultancy firm Janes.